Welcome sports fans, this is Phantom Man 100. I'm here to give you a new review today to the Casual Review Show. Welcome to episode 2. This is my second review. For those who haven't seen my other video and are currently unaware with this new show, the Casual Review Show is all about running through games, telling everyone about what's good and bad about them. I don't give scores on this show because whenever I watch a review, I like to look at the good and bad things about a video game, and I'll get really invested into a game. But if then, after talking about how good it is, if they look at it and say, well, this is a really great game, but we give it only a 4 out of 10, it's a bit of a put-off. So, for people who just want to know a bit about a game before they decide to play it, this is what this show is for. I don't give a score. I tell you about the game, a bit of its history, how to play it, what it's about, and you can make up your own mind whether you want to try it or not. So, my review today, we're going to be going into Final Fantasy Type 0 HD. This is the PS4 version of the game. It's also available on the Xbox One as well. This game came out several years ago for the PlayStation Portable, otherwise known as the PSP, several years ago. And it was a Japan-only game. Now, unfortunately, a lot of Final Fantasy games have made it to Western countries, but this one didn't. But it was very popular in Japan, as most of their RPGs are. So when they announced that this was going to be brought to console, I was pretty excited. Now, being a PSP game, there can be a bit to expect. You might think that it might not look very good, but I can tell you right now that they ported this game brilliantly. It looks great. It is set in a similar universe to Final Fantasy 13, and it was originally part of a series of games based after 13. Originally, this was called Final Fantasy 13 Agito, and also originally Final Fantasy 13 Versus is now Final Fantasy 15, which we've got coming out, I think at the end of this year or maybe next year, which also is a very pretty looking game. If you pre-ordered this game, you were able to give early access to the demo Final Fantasy 15, which it's a reasonable sized demo. This game ported across brilliantly. Final Fantasy Type 0. What I have to say to start with this game, you have a lot more that you can do. Now, the story of this game, I'm not going to go too far into the story because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. But what I can tell you about this game is that after you do story missions, you can access them from your main menu and replay your missions. So as I'm talking you through the game, I'm mostly just going to be replaying like one of the first missions you do on the easiest level, just to show you what the game looks like. Now, this game, unlike most games, you have a huge list of characters. Huge list. Normally, Final Fantasy games will give you a list of about 6 or 7 characters, and usually have about 3 in a party. This game lets you have 3 in a party at one time, but your other characters act as what are called reserves, which means that if any of them fall in battle, the next character on your list of reserves will jump in instead to help you out, which is really cool. So, all the characters, most of them at least, have names based off a deck of cards, and they're all part of a special class in this world. There's a class where characters are trained in using magic and abilities in combat, and these guys are from the class called Class 0, hence the name. They're a class that's secret, and all the other classes, which goes from 1 to about 20, I think. I could be wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments. They don't know about the existence of these guys. These guys are like elite forces. They're only young, but they're elite forces, and they are charged with protecting their area that gets attacked by an opposing faction. Because in the world there are 4 factions, and one of them decides to declare war on everybody else. Every single character in this game are completely unique. So Ace uses cards to do damage to your opponents. That's his main weapon. King uses magnums. Makane uses big rapiers, Trey uses a bow, 9 uses a lance. You've got characters that use daggers, flamberges, whip blades, pistols. They all use different weapons. Each character is very unique, but they can all learn similar skills. All of the characters can learn like the cure spells. They can all heal themselves. So there are certain abilities they can all learn, so it's not as restrictive on who you can take in a battle, which is really fun. Like I said, I'm not going to go too deep into the story of this game. I don't want to spoil too much for anybody, but I am going to show you a basic mission and how it works. So I'm going to have Ace as a first active character. You can switch between any 3 of your characters during battle at any time. So the 3 characters you pick, you can play as either one of them whenever you want. So I'm going to go Ace. I'm going to go Machina. This is my favourite setup. I like playing Ace because he's a ranged character with his throwing cards, which is pretty unique. Machina's cool because he's close range. And then I also like using Queen because she's got very good healing abilities. So I usually pick these guys. So they all level up individually. So you can, the reason you can replay missions is so you can play different characters, because only the characters that are active gain experience. Ones that are part of your reserves don't.
Class 0, beginning mission.
So you have a free run. You can run around. You can target enemies when you get into battle. It's a very free flow kind of system. If anybody is familiar with the Final Fantasy series, if you've played the PSP game Crisis Core, it's a little bit like that. It's not a turn-based game. So when you're in a mission, you're free to run around like this, and then when you get into battles, it stays in the world, and you can run around and use all your abilities at will. There's no turn-based about it. So it's a very fast, free-flowing game compared to some other Final Fantasies like Final Fantasy X, which is, a solid turn-based game, and it does feel a little slow, unless that's your kind of thing. So if you're not used to fast-paced battles, or you don't like them much, this game might not be for you. But as you can see, it looks really good. It's a PSP game ported to console, but what they've done is they've taken the character models from the CG cutscenes in the game and made them as the player character models. So they've upscaled this game a lot to make it, look really good. I mean, it's for a game that was a PSP game, it looks quite remarkable. They've done a great job of porting this. So at the press of a button, you can swap between your characters. It's literally that easy. So it gives you a lot of options. You can play pretty much whoever you want. So when you pick your items, so you've got your options down the bottom right. So square is like your base attack. That yellow bar is your special bar, which is what you use for. So X, this is the PS4 version of the game. You cut your cards. So his ability is to cut cards, which means that now it's an MP charge. So now when he uses that, he charges his MP. So it gives you random stats. So all of their weapons have different abilities. And then triangle is fire. He's got a fire ability, but I can also give him an electric ability or a blizzard or anything like that. They're also on there. And then circle is a cure, so he can cure himself and his party members. But you can change all of those in the equipment settings. So there's lots of options for abilities and stuff for your characters. This game is great. It's got a very deep story. I haven't played very far in the story. Combat. So there are enemies. You can lock onto enemies by pressing the shoulder button. You can dodge enemies by pressing circle, which starts to dodge. And when you defeat enemies, they'll be on the ground, and you then press square, and it absorbs an energy from them, which restores your MP, and also you pick up this stuff called Phantoma, which comes in different colours depending on how you defeated them, and that is used to upgrade your spells. As you learn new spells, like upgraded versions of Fire and Blizzard and that sort of thing, in the main hub of the game, which is the academy where these guys train, you can go to a room where you can upgrade your spells. So you spend Phantoma to upgrade them so that they cost less mana to perform, or they charge up quicker, or they do more damage, that kind of thing. So it's not as locked in as some games. I really like having those options. It's a lot of fun. It's very different, though. It took me a long time to get used to the combat of this game. Like I said, if a character gets knocked out, the next one in reserve will come in. It's not like, there's no permanent death or anything like what the Fire Emblem games do, so you don't have to worry about that so much. And Moogles make a return. The Moogles were a really big thing in the Dissidia fighting games, and also in 13, I think, as well. Not all of the games have had Moogles, but because this is originally part of a series based in a similar universe to 13, they have a lot of heavily influence. The combat in this game is amazing, though. It blew me away how well they brought everything across on it. Like, I expected it to not be as visually striking because of what it is. But they did a great job, and it's good that they finally decided to bring it to Western audiences because it's so popular in Japan. And being able to access the demo for Final Fantasy 15 was a very nice little bonus. So that's Ace. So I'm now just going to show you a bit of what Machina plays like. He's got his big rapiers. I think I may have missed an enemy. Yes, I did. So, he uses dual rapiers in battle. One of his abilities is called the Cyclone Drive, which is where you press X. And it's like a charge up move, so he dashes forward, does a lot of damage. And I've also got him equipped with the Thunder spell as well, which sort of shoots out of them. So he's a lot more close range. And he's also got the Wall spell. When you cast it, it creates a wall in front of you, so that enemies who use range attacks, it doesn't penetrate the wall. And it lasts a long time, so it's actually really cool. This game is definitely it's definitely different. It has an open world as well, so when you leave the academy, you can walk around the open world, and then when you come across the enemy encounters are then random. So when you come across enemies, it'll randomly put you into a battle like this, depending on the location you're in. And then once you finish the battle, your characters gain their XP and the gil and that sort of stuff, and then you go back to the big overworld you're in. So that's very traditional in the way of how the Final Fantasy games previously have worked.
You'll go no further. Sniper team, get to your
The game has 3 difficulty settings for replaying missions. So you can... The first 2 difficulties are not very different. They require the same level of play, but in the final one, your characters have to be a really high level, like level 40 or something. It's ridiculously high. So I haven't played very much of the story, so my characters are very high level. But it's a very, very good game. I love what they did with it. The port is terrific. They did a good job bringing this across. So you can go in your menu, you've got all your info, so it tells you how many reserve members you've got left, how long you've been playing, how many casualties you've had. So you lose points and score, and you earn less rewards if you've had characters fall in battle. You'll notice that when you bring up your menu, the game isn't actually paused, everything is still happening. So it's everything is still in real time, which means you can't pause like this in the middle of a battle to use items. You've got to use it right during the battle. So some people may not like that. I think it makes it more interesting. You got your items, so all items you carry on you, your accessories, your weapons, how much Phantoma you've got altogether. You can also breed chocobos that you can ride in the overworld to get around a lot quicker. You've got your squads, you can look at your characters and the items and everything they've got, but you can't change them mid-game. You can only do that before your mission. You select your equipment there. Then it's also got a list of all your button layout. It's a very, very different Final Fantasy game I found. It's a lot of fun. I'll quickly take you through to the Academy now so you can see what that's like. It's a very big area. There's lots of things to do there. So at the moment I'm actually in a town that's outside in the open world. So if I leave the town... So this is your big overworld. Rubrum, it's called. This is the big open world. So you just, kind of running around here. So you run, and then enemies are pretty much randomly encountered. Some games you can see them on, some you can't. So this is just a completely random encounter. So I've got King and Makina with me in the story mode at the moment. You can have any one of the characters with you, any one of the 14 playable characters. They collect all that stuff from all enemies they just defeated. Enemy presence detected. So what this means is when more enemies come, you can choose to fight them, and sometimes you'll get big chains of enemies, and the more you do it once, the more gil and experience you'll learn. I'm just going to retreat for now, but by chaining fights together like that, it boosts everything you can earn, which is a really clever idea. They've never done that in a game before. It's a pity that this came out so long ago, and that they haven't thought of ideas like that in the more recent ones. I'm going to be put into another battle again. This game is it's one thing I will say about this game, it's a lot more gritty than previous Final Fantasy games. It really takes the gloves off in its storytelling, because the game opens with the war, the nations declaring the war, and you see lots of characters have been, murdered quite violently. Actually, it's not overly graphic, but Things like blood and stuff are a lot more visual in this game. Other Final Fantasy games have never really been like that. So this game is a lot more on the realistic, serious side of things. I mean, in the opening cutscene, you see a character who's trying to deliver news to these cadets, and things don't go well for him, and he has a chocobo that's with him, and you see the chocobo get wounded and actually die, which is a bit full on for a Final Fantasy game, not something I've been used to. So it has got a much grittier storyline. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of path the storyline takes in Final Fantasy 15. So for a PSP game, this game looks amazing. They scaled it really well. I'm very impressed with it. It's a very pretty looking game for what it is. So if you're looking for a good Final Fantasy fix until 15 comes out, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. So this is your main area in the academy. When I was back outside, you could go to an arena and test your abilities and skills if you didn't want to replay missions. You've got the Great Portal, which can take you to different places. So you've got your sorcery area where you upgrade your spells, armory where you can buy new equipment, a ready room, you can talk to characters and get quests there. Same with the lounge, pretty much. You've got the terrace and the chocobo ranch, which is where you can ride chocobos and train them, and you can also raise them. So you can actually breed chocobos, and if you breed chocobos of different types, they gain attributes like they might move faster or last longer before they kick you off, and that sort of thing, because they do only last a certain amount of time. Through this door is the hallway. This hallway leads to the classroom of Class 0. So the classroom is where a lot of the other characters are, so you can also interact with the other characters, and sometimes you'll get boosts to your stats and stuff by interacting with certain characters. This is also where you get mission briefing. So when a new mission comes up for a story mission, you'll find out about it from this guy who's your boss. And you've also got a Moogle as your teacher. Each class has a Moogle that teaches them. You've got a girl there that you go for info. In the back garden is a place, it's like there are certain characters that have conversations and events and stuff here. It's like a cemetery at the back for people that have fallen in the war. So depending on which character you're playing, sometimes you can go in there. And the games, this game in particular, it's one of those games where you have a save point. This is your save point. When you go to your save point, this is where you access everything else. So you can assign characters. This is where you can change your playable character. You can edit your reserves. It's where so you go armament and you can change what equipment they're wearing. Their accessories, their weapons. You can promote them so you can actually upgrade their abilities and stuff by earning points. You can also change the difficulty at any time you want, which is really handy. And I'll quickly show you, before we finish the review for today, and I talk to you a little bit more of my final thoughts, I'll take you here. This is the Alto Crystarium. This is where you go and upgrade all of your spells and abilities. Okay, so you've got fire spells, ice spells, lightning, defense, and unique. So if I wanted to upgrade my fire spells, so at the moment I have fire RF and fire SHC. It tells you their MP cost, their prerequisites of what they need, the cast time, and MP cost. So for example, if I wanted to upgrade this, it tells me that I would need 11 magenta phantoma. I need 11 of them, and I have 12 in stock, and I can use that to then upgrade the power, and this is what it would do. So it would give me +6 to power, but it would give me -2 to MP cost. So it would cost 2 more MP, but it would be 6 points more powerful. You can upgrade them separately, so I could make it so the MP cost was higher, or the cast time was better, and of course that uses different types of phantoma as well. So you can upgrade all your spells, and any character can use any spell, which means that you're not restricted. It's like if for example you wanted to use exclusively lightning spells, it's not like you'd only have to have a certain character in your party. So you've got a huge list of characters and the freedom to use pretty much whoever you want, which I think is terrific. So this has a lot more characters and a lot more options compared to the Final Fantasy games. And by looking at this map, it's pretty big. I look forward to diving a lot deeper into it as time goes. But as a port, it's fantastic. It's a big game. It really fills the gap because we haven't had a Final Fantasy game for a while, and until 15 comes out, it's great. It's got a good history. You can replay all of your missions, which is a nice thing to add to it. Even once you finish the story, you can keep going and replay certain missions or moments that you really enjoyed, which is something that we haven't really been able to do at this point. So all in all, Final Fantasy Type 0 HD. Fun game. The port is fantastic. The graphics are really good for what it is, considering it's a PSP game from years ago. And I highly recommend it to anybody who's a Final Fantasy fan that's familiar with the stories of the others. Like all games, they're not connected at all, but it is a very similar universe to other Final Fantasy 13 games. It's a similar sort of world, but I will warn you again, it is a more gritty type of game. It's very serious. It's a little bit more violent than others, like when you're fighting humanoid enemies, they will actually, have blood and stuff on them. Like other Final Fantasy games are a bit softer than that, but this one is a bit more gritty. So it's a different direction they went with this release, and I'm glad that they brought it to Western countries for us to try it. But it is a really good game. I definitely recommend it. So, thanks for listening to my review today. If you'd like to know more about the game, or if you want a score from it, just check it out on the Facebook page. And if you want to know more about it, or have any other questions, if there's anything I haven't covered, feel free to send me a personal message, and I'll get back to you. So thanks for watching my review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that if you do pick up this game, you enjoyed it as much as I have. So until then, sports fans, take it easy. Peace out.